How are you, Jeff?
Unmuted. I'm fine. How are
Unmuted.
you? Are you recovering at all?
It doesn't seem like it, does it?
It doesn't sound like it.
It's yeah, it's just lingering. Although Dee was really sweet and brought like little Vicks vapor rub and eucalyptus oil and
Oh, and you're in Kansas City then?
yeah.
Yeah, so that sucks to be traveling while you're sick too.
I was in Jersey when it started, so yeah, you were here when I was in Jersey, right?
I don't know where you were. I was there like the 20th October,
Yeah.
2021, somewhere in there.
Yep.
Real quick trip.
So yes, but glad you got here.
Yeah. It was a pain to get there. So I haven't had a flight in, I don't know how long, that hasn't had misconnections and delays. I don't know if it's a standard anymore or just me.
I don't know, but I don't want to travel with you then. Sorry.
So it's just me.
Might be. So we'll find out how we do on this call. People are traveling and
yeah, last I heard Avery was in Australia. I haven't heard from Tyler in ages, so I don't know where he's at.
I know. Yeah, my son's in Australia right now, so he's working in a nature preserve. Oh look,
it's Tyler.
Talk about Tyler. Our long lost friend. Last I heard, he was going to Detroit. Talk about connected networks, right?
He's connected, but he's not on.
He's not on.
Talking to me?
Yeah, we're talking.
We're talking about you.
About you and to you.
Hold on.
Are you in Florida? Hi, Carol.
Hi.
Hi.
So, Tyler, where
Hello.
are you right now?
Daytona Beach.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to get off of Wi-Fi.
Are you completing your move?
I am. Yep, I just got. Here, hi. Hi, everybody. I'm in Daytona. Yeah, had my last 1 million cups to this morning. Stepped down, handed over the transfer. So it's not very Florida right now.
Are you going to give Rick Tarosi a run for his money with the beard thing going there?
Yeah.
I might. Check out the road trip.
Awesome.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah, is it freezing cold in Tampa or in right now?
Daytona? No, it's only in the 60s.
Okay.
Oh, whatever.
It's cold. You know, I mean, for Florida, it's cold. But no, it's just gray and whatever. I think it'll get down to 40s tonight, but about it. No worries. No polar freezes.
So, what's it like where you are, Jeff?
It's mostly sunny and about 65 degrees. Probably get up to 75 today.
Kind of hate you a little bit, you know. Carol, what about you?
Well, our wind chill has just gotten above 0 in the last 90 minutes. So, hooray, hooray, hooray. They tell us it won't be back below 0, perhaps for many weeks or months, that we have suffered the worst. But man, have we had a tough couple of days.
I don't know. I left Tulsa on Sunday. I had the windows rolled down, I had a t-shirt on, 72 degrees. And then the next day it was snowing in Kansas City. So yesterday, Christine's like, oh, I'm going to go to the store before we go to the foundation. I'm like, Christine, it's 9 degrees. I'm coming to pick you up.
Wow.
Ridiculous. Okay. So, connected networks. And we don't have a speaker. So, we were going to talk about the challenge of connected networks and what we can do about it. Jeff, are you able to put in stuff in the notes?
Yep.
Great.
The challenge of connected networks and what we can do about it.
Yeah, I think Is that what I wrote? Um, Challenges with connecting networks and working towards a solution. Um, so I think, you know, ESHIP is a great example of how we connect networks. So we'll start with a popcorn question. Hello, Hazan. Um, so my popcorn question in connecting networks. One of the things that we talked about for the past couple of days in designing for the ESHIP 2020 is the idea that we would have people come together as a connected network in their community. Just very meta, nothing's laid out, just an idea of having, if you have to find a buddy or two in your community to come with, do you know who that is?
When you say your community, you mean in our city?
Yeah, in your city.
I
in
know
your
who it's going to be.
town.
It's my co-founder.
Well, yes, that was really easy for you, Jeff. All right, I'm going to ask you for two others because Laura's already a given. Tyler's moving. Hassan is connected to so many different other people. So if I ask you to bring two people in close proximity to where you are physically to come together with you to the ESHIP Summit, can you name them
Yes.
and
Yes.
who they are and how you are currently aligned with them already? So, Jeff, since you have an answer to
Oh,
that
this is the
question,
popcorn. Okay, yeah. So, really, so the first one, of course, is my co-founder, business partner, Laura Good. She's been to she's been to two eShips as well, and I'm sure she'll go to this one. But we also have a couple other guys come to mind who've been on or are on the organizing team for 1MC in Sacramento. So I would choose them. Josh, why am I zoning out on his last name right now? But Josh and Cameron Law, who is now the director of entrepreneurship at Sacramento State. They're both young millennials, lots of energy, lots of enthusiasm. They would be the guys. Oh, popcorn. Oh, let's go. Tyler, dude.
Okay. I would choose from two communities. One, I would choose Ryan Lilly from Ocala, Florida. Killer guy, 10 years experience, recently published a great book. Got a real good attitude and a good philosophy on how to really integrate entrepreneurship into retention and attraction communities. So we bring something interesting there. And then I'm actually going to bring one from Daytona, gentleman named Michael Zaharias. Michael is an ecosystem builder lost at sea. He's not connected to anybody. And I think he represents a group that we don't really know is out there. I think there's a lot of people doing the work that aren't looking for help. And I think getting individuals like Michael to come and get engaged and see the bigger picture, I think would be valuable. So he's kind of a hard get. So that's why I always throw his name in the hat too. And I will popcorn to Hassan, who's the last person I've seen in person.
Hey, Tyler. Sorry, guys, I missed the question.
so if you were to bring someone from your community, two people from your community, and to the next eShip Summit, who are they and how are you connected with them?
Oh, wow. On the spot here, there are a lot of people, and this is recorded, right? So if somebody watches this, they're going to think I have preferential treatment.
I had dinner with one
Who's that?
that I think you should name. Oh,
Who?
no, it's your list, buddy.
No, man, you tell me, because sometimes like somebody who's right in front of everything either sometimes is missing something which is clearly obvious or.
He was at dinner with us, and then we talked to him outside right before we left. He's got the co-op thing, the community paper company. No.
Oh, you're Matt Lewis.
Matt Lewis. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So that's actually, yeah, Matt is a great guy to bring. So there's one. And I'm blanking on
This
his name right.
wasn't a community question. Like no cheating. What?
No, this isn't cheating. This is actually this is collaboration.
That's so funny. I've met
and the other,
people who
Mass collaboration.
yeah, and there's John Eaton is the other guy. And I think because he's with a university incubator and they're a little bit outside of Detroit proper. And in terms of ecosystem mapping and connectivity to the rest of the ecosystem, they're often overlooked. So yeah, that's the other guy, that John Eaton, with it's called the Macomb OU Incubator.
Okay, Carol.
My first one would come from our Department of Commerce office. We've got a whole new team, new governor, new party in control of the state, and with a articulated mission of having an entrepreneurial ecosystem that is the envy of the rest of the country. And so Erin Guthrie, who's our acting director, nobody can quite figure out why she's still acting after 8 months in the job, but she is, or her deputy director, who is not acting, but is for permanent, Agnes Mankin. And so my connection to them is that, we are looking at becoming their vehicle for delivering services. We're looking at going under contract with the governor's office as a state association for delivering services and also collecting information about the 212 incubators in the state, half of whom are downtown, the other half of whom are scattered around Illinois, and what they need and what they do, and what's next for them. So that would, one of those two ladies would be my number one. My number two would be Laura Friedrichs at U of I, because Laura's created a university incubator system a couple of years ago on a grant, and it kind of went nowhere. So that's folded, but she's working now with the other universities in the state to see what she can pull together and where she can light fires under people, because U of I is the big elephant in the room here in the state, and the campus that everybody loves to hate. The administrative structure that everybody loves to hate, but she keeps on trying and poking around to see what she can pull together. And so she'd be my number two. And I know her just because she's one of my 212. She runs an incubator at U of I. So
Okay.
we've talked to her a long time.
So if I had to figure out my physical community in Tulsa, I've had my friend Erin Belsley, who runs a program called the Tulsa Remote Program, which you might see recently in Forbes, talking about people moving to Tulsa for $10,000 if they move there for a year and being a remote employee. But
Big fan of
he's
Aaron.
been to, yes, he's been to 2 ESHIPs. I would actually invite Brandon Oldham, who's another program manager, who's looking at entrepreneurship and has actually just recently made sure that we bring in this weekend Felicia Hatcher and Fallon Wilson, who are also in the ESHIP community. So I'm really excited that they're coming to Tulsa. And another person I would bring who would be Devin Laney, who is our newest executive director for the co-working space. He was the acting president of NBIA and just recently moved to Tulsa from Birmingham. So I think I want to delve a little deeper into some of your answers in a minute, but we're going to ask this question of Eric, who popped on. So Eric, the question of the day is, when when you think about inviting two people from your community to the next ESHIP Summit, who would you invite, and how are you, what is your relationship with them? No pressure.
Boy, I didn't realize I was not muted. I've been having trouble with some of these. Let's see. Great question. I think one of the folks I'm most excited about is a fellow named Alex Horton, who's really doing a very neighborhood-based and grounded accelerator in one of our more, overlooked, impoverished kind of parts of the city of Albuquerque, our international district. He's just a guy who's doing it right in a lot of different ways, and we just want to, help connect him to some of the powerhouses and other kind of resources around the country. That's first step. I don't have another name. I'm looking for some other people in other parts of the state that are more tapped into probably the Native American communities. One person, a quick person who comes to mind is Jamie Glochet, who's one of the co-founders of Native Women Lead. They do an annual business summit for Native women entrepreneurs, but also just a powerhouse in terms of making things happen, not just in the Albuquerque area, but beginning to have an impact with Native American communities nationally.
Excellent.
Real quick, some of you, I asked if people go into the agenda and actually write the names there, that'll save me having to copy and
Damn
paste.
it. Okay, fine. Yes.
I'll copy yours, Cecilia.
Thank you.
I can get Hassan's. I totally missed Eric, so.
All right. So Eric, you'll have to type it in so that he can, or put it into the agenda. That would be very helpful. Thank you. Okay. So I want you to think about your answers, and I want you to tell me what makes those people different than you, whether it's a gender, a major identity marker, age, the kind of thing. So Brandon is a Black man who works for a foundation, and he's actually an employee of a foundation as opposed to myself, who is a consultant for a foundation. Devin is a white guy. He's part of NBIA, and was the past president. So he looks at ecosystems through an incubator lens, and that's how he differs from me. He was living in Birmingham, and Brandon, I believe, is from Tulsa. I grew up in New York City, so geographically we come from different experiences, and I believe Brandon is a millennial. He's on the older side of millennial, but it makes him in a different age range. So think about the people that you named and tell me how you're connecting in different networks than yourself. I'm going to just put it out there, not have to call on anyone.
Well, that's a good question. When I was rethinking mine, I chose mine. Mine are two white guys, so that made me question whether, I chose them because they're passionate and they're really involved in the community. But there are others that I would also consider that aren't white guys that I would possibly amend my statement to be more inclusive.
I chose two white ladies like me, white women. And so Jeff, I echo some of your thoughts. Yet both of them each of them are a different generation from each other and from me. And of course, so Agnes or Erin represents a government point of view and a government-related pot of money. I'm not sure, quite frankly, how well either of them understand the private sector and the real world of startups. However, they're in jobs where they're obviously the ecosystem matters a whole lot. And the health of the ecosystem during this governor's term, however long it ends up being, is their opportunity to make a mark. So whichever of those two ladies, since I have them as kind of two sides of a coin. And then Laura down at U of I, she's got a university point of view that, even though I've hung around universities for a long time, it's not in my blood. I tend to knock heads when I am at faculty meetings or graduate school meetings, and the university networks that I play in with one of my day jobs, just because their point of view is so different, again, from private sector, nimble, agile, startups, launch and learn kind of world. They're so much more risk adverse, and yet have embraced the concept of entrepreneurialism and innovation. And I'd love to help them bridge from where they are with their extreme risk aversion, their slow moving organizational style and pace, and see about making their world a little bit more productive and get off of the 2 and 3 year cycles. Well, the governor's office kind of runs on a 4-year cycle. But pretty much a 2 and 3 year cycle between thinking about something and actually making it happen. So that's quite different.
Tyler, Hassan, Eric, do you have, Eric, I know that, so one of the things that I can speak of about Eric is very intentionally inclusive in almost everything that he's done that I've seen. So I really applaud his motivation to make sure that happens. So Eric, while I see that about the things that you try and do, how is it, it's hard, but it's easy, right? Because you do it on purpose. So let me ask you, what is it that you've learned to do that we can learn from?
Well, you're probably giving me too much credit. So what I'll say, I think the only difference, or the thing that I think, so in response to the question, in response to the folks that have tried to get involved with ESHIP already, there are organizations that when I post something and encourage people to get involved with ESHIP or go to a summit or some other kind of thing, there are organizations that have the capacity to send people that are already probably thinking along those lines. And I'm just letting them know about an opportunity. There are other folks who have not necessarily been part of the, kind of the power structures that are kind of newcomers, or they're shaking things up. Those folks, I think, often require a little bit more of an invitation, a little more, why is your time going to be valuable? Why is this going to be a valuable experience for you? So there's a little extra conversation, I think, that's involved with inviting the folks who have not yet been at the table. So I just try to make sure that's part of what I do. I don't know if that answers the question, though.
No, I think that's wonderful. Hassan, I'm going to call on you for a minute. Now, what I've realized about a lot of the work that you do is you're very liminal. You straddle a lot of very different organizations, and you lend your perspective, and you're the voice that's not at the tables of, from your marketplace board to the Dearborn community board to some other things. So you're the person in the community who gets a taste of very different things. And do you feel drawn to share those other? I know I do. So I'm wondering if it's me, or it's like you understand that those people aren't at the table and you lend those perspectives. I think that's infinitely important, but it's very underscored. So I want to ask you about that experience.
So in a weird way, I guess I kind of feel like I'm a gatekeeper, even though I don't want to be a gatekeeper. Like when you posed the question about who I would, if two people that I would invite, I just, I mean, I gave out and Tyler shared one of the names, but the name that came to mind was just, I wasn't thinking in terms of gender or race, or I was just thinking of someone in the ecosystem here that I don't think is included. I think, and I mean, I've said this on other calls, but I think we have in Detroit, our ecosystem is a little more advanced and built out in that the people that you wouldn't normally see at the table and in conversations, in one form or another, through somebody in the ecosystem, have a connectivity to the ecosystem. It's very difficult. Like for me, I mean, when I'm with some of the boards that I'm on and in the committees, I'm really, in a weird way, there are so many different perspectives that I could bring to the conversation. And I can't bring all of those perspectives at one time. So it's looking at what's the best use of my time in that meeting or at that table, and which group or which idea or which perspective would be most useful to that group, or would probably in all likelihood not be part of that group. That's the perspective that I bring, because I think in one way or another, like I said, there are so many connections to the ecosystem that a lot of people in other ecosystems that might not have a voice in our ecosystem here are, in one way or another, even though they might not be at the table, they know someone who is at the table and that person has them in mind. So for me, it's usually, the way I approach it is that I look at who is the least likely person that I can think of, or perspective that would have a voice at that table, where I could lift up that perspective. Because I could approach those conversations from so many different perspectives, and there's so many, and I can't bring all of the perspectives at one time, just because there isn't that opportunity. So it's usually just, like I said, I'm thinking about who is the voice or the perspective that would least likely be at that table or in that conversation.
Excellent. Thank you, Hassan. Tyler, I'm going to challenge a notion. You mentioned somebody in your ecosystem who is like out there by themselves. And one of the conversations that I've had here at the foundation in the last 48 hours is, you can't build an ecosystem alone. And so are they really an ecosystem builder if they're not building it alongside somebody? Or what makes you see that they are an ecosystem builder if they're just doing the solo thing?
Percentage of budget allotted. So a percentage of budget allotted represents, if they're running programs or not running programs, if they're going to events or not going to events. To me, it's how much of the actual time and money available to be spent on these projects and these efforts, geographically, socioeconomically, whatever category it is you're looking for, whatever personas, etc. There are individuals, and they're rare. They're pretty more like Bigfoot these days, I think, than anything else. But they do exist, and unfortunately, in some communities, they represent more of a roadblock. And I think if they were brought to the ESHIP events, if they were brought into the fold, if they were invited, by influential people, that they, might listen to, or just might finally respond to the volume of invites you know, saying, hey, listen, we really want you here. We really want your voice. We want you to be part of it. You know, I think that that would go a long way to filling in some of the gaps that do exist. But you know, in looking back at you know your second question, you know, versus your first, you know, my two answers were personas, not persons. So, you know, I always go for personas. So, but you know, there's definitely individuals that you know should also be at ESHIP and you know, for their own unique contributions to what's going on. And I think that the two voices that I picked, still think represents, you know, probably the left and right of my network. But there it is.
All right, that's good. That's good. That's helpful. So, Carol, you talked about those two sets of women, right? One in education, one in government, and you're not either one of those. How have you gotten into a conversation where, because a lot of government people, they usually have people approach them that are looking for something from them. So it's very transactional. Education is a lot of, we have information and you need information, right? So again, it's very transactional. So how have you bridged conversations to connect in meaningful win-win ways in order to move forward from there, aligned with someone?
Well, in both of those cases, let's see, I approached Laura the first time in 2016 when I was first thinking about starting a state association. I guess what I actually did in terms of literally, if somebody had been living on my shoulder watching what I did in both cases, the more recent government and Laura, a university older, is did some homework on what did it appear their missions and their interests were based on whatever publications or press releases were coming out of their office. Laura had done a press release announcing this university grant and this 2-year program, and that she was hiring a part-time executive director to make it happen. And I spotted that, and so, you know, right away I could see that we had a shared interest and that I could help her with her mission of going statewide. Maybe there were some people in my network that I knew that she would like to know. So just as I cold call most people, my whole world is about cold calling people, actually, whether it's potential sponsors, potential partners, has been for years. That's really a lot of what I do. I just look for what does it seem like their main mission is and their mode, and how might I be able to make a contribution either through relationships or information that I have. The government people was kind of, but government ladies was kind of the same thing. I watched for the governor's office in February to release his transitional task force paperwork on his economic development priorities. And even though those people had no power, and it really was a document that threw a lot of stuff at the wall to see what would stick, but no commitments, no accountability to do anything. And then when just this summer, the more accountable 5-year plan was released to the world, you know, it was perfectly clear. Both of those documents mentioned incubators by name, innovation by name, entrepreneurship by name, and talked about the state's main problem, which is this population drain that we've been having for many years and may have forever, at all age levels, all generations. Illinois has a huge population drain that we're being in the midst of. And so again, my first conversation was just, hi, this is what I've been doing. I might have some things to contribute to the stuff that you guys have published that you care about. And that's whether if sometimes, you know, obviously not everybody I approach has published stated goals or missions, but even when I'm approaching potential sponsors, you know, if I understand their product market and their main audiences and can see that I can deliver some part of that to them through an alliance, then that's all I need to start a conversation. First email, first voicemail I leave them, whatever it is. So I look for whatever I can find out, and I'm kind of research based by training. So I'm happy to do Google and see what I can find out that's in the research world. But if nothing's published, I can usually kind of figure out what somebody's mission is likely to be and propose how I might be able to connect into it.
So that leads me to a very Brad Feld comment or about ecosystem building or entrepreneur supports, which is give before you get. And I know we talk about that at Startup Champions, and I've recently challenged that notion. I don't believe in give before you get as much as I thought I did.
Can I challenge you on your challenge?
Absolutely.
Okay, go ahead, finish.
So I think that the notion of giving before you get comes from a place of privilege. I think it's easy to give when you have a lot, that you can have the bandwidth and the space and the opportunity. I'm more of a fan of coming with a sharing mindset. And I think it's perfectly okay to tell me sometimes some of the things that you need, because how else do I know how to be in service of you? At the same time, I also like the notion that, or I also feel like sometimes you don't know what to give. You assume that you're giving the thing that they really need when you've not built the relationship enough to know what they truly need. And sometimes people just don't know what they need. They think that they need stuff. So an example around entrepreneurs, if you ask entrepreneurs what they would need, I would say upwards of 90% of the time, they're going to tell you they need funding. And then it's that second question of, what do you use the funding for? And that's what they actually need. Do they need more customers? Do they need more marketing? Do they need more technical savvy? Do they need legal assistance? Yes, the money is the vehicle, but what they need is something else, right? So sometimes they know and sometimes they don't. So Jeff, challenge me on my assumption.
Well, so, and maybe it's not a big challenge, but I think some people, when they hear give before they get, they might think it's money. And maybe what I'm interpreting you saying is that not a lot of people don't necessarily have money to give, but I think it goes broader that somebody can give their time, even if that, and it doesn't have to be an absolutist thing. It's relative to what you've got. I think the implication for me with give before you get is don't come into something asking and wanting. You need to provide your talents or your time or just telling somebody a connection that you can help out. It's being helpful rather than asking. To me, that's what that means.
And I appreciate that. And I don't think that it's only about money. But I also think sometimes bootstrapping entrepreneurs don't have the time. They cannot come and give freely or I mean, it's not sustainable. They do need stuff. So I don't want you not to come into community because you don't have anything to offer or you don't know what you have to offer. I think the most core thing is the desire to build a relationship. So I think that sets ecosystem builders apart from almost everybody, is that integral desire to build the relationship in order for us to all flourish in our custom and bespoke ways. So I believe this connected network thing is core to being an ecosystem builder. I had a conversation with Dee at 1 Million Cups, and the notion is, can all ecosystem builders be 1 Million Cups facilitators, and can all 1 Million Cups facilitators be ecosystem builders? And it's not mutually exclusive, right? So Jeff, you, Tyler, I, Eric, we've all been part of 1 Million Cups. And we know that there are people at 1 Million Cups, great organizers, really not the best ecosystem builders, right? So I don't think that
Yep.
if you're not good at it, that doesn't mean you're a horrible person, right? Not everybody is an ecosystem builder. So my next question for everybody is, because one of the things that we talked about as we were having a team meeting is the traits of a good ecosystem builder. What do we look for in a person? What do we recognize? Because those are not traits that are conventionally taught in leadership, right? Leadership organizations do not teach certain skills that are inherent to ecosystem builders. So I'd love to get a list going, and I will try to put it in the notes, of what makes a good ecosystem builder.
Norris has got a poll about that.
I know, but Norris isn't on this call. No traits?
I'll throw out a few since I've been thinking a lot about it. I think empathy, openness, systems thinker. And openness is a squishy term, but I mean being open to new ideas, opening to new connections. I think being helpful, I think having empathy are key squishy traits to being an impactful ecosystem builder.
I'll add those to the agenda in a minute. All right, Tyler, Eric, Hassan, Carol, what else makes a good ecosystem builder?
I would say hard skills in the hard skills world. And of course, I'm particularly interested in that now because of my work on the certification and training initiatives that are part of Goal 7. But, you know, in terms
What are
of
hard skills for you?
being well informed about what works and doesn't work in the world of entrepreneurship, the world of financing startups, worlds of leadership and management in terms of new concepts, new trends, new things that are on the cusp of happening. So it's about being well informed on current versus out of date thinking, because entrepreneurship has gone through, I mean, I started out as a venture capitalist in 1974, and I've seen about, I don't know, maybe 7 major changes in the world of finance, the conceptual world of financing startups in those decades since I was 23 years old and started screening deals.
So I'm going to challenge that notion. I think while it is helpful to be well informed, I think if you're an entrepreneur support organizer or an entrepreneur support person, yes, you need to know what those trends and things are. To be an ecosystem builder does not necessarily rely on how savvy you are on what's going on right now. And I'm curious if anyone agrees or disagrees with that notion.
Well, I guess I would disagree in that there are waves of, and best practices, waves that ecosystem builders need to know about in order to be clear about what resources should be on their short list of essential things to pull together. And fads and fashions come and go, and, the whole thing of what fintech is creating that's quite new and different, unlike anything before. People don't understand. My guess is if someone doesn't understand the basics of fintech in about 10 years, when it's getting rather mature, they cannot jump on the train of be very effective with helping startups understanding all their options to be financed or to
Right.
find.
So again, I'm going to, there's like,
Pretty focused definition.
right, it's a interwoven thread but I don't think it's mutually. I think there's connectedness between somebody who runs an accelerator, incubator, those kinds of things, to an ecosystem builder. So I don't think that those are exactly the same. They're aligned, and they are really close, and there's a lot of overlaps, but I do not necessarily believe that an ecosystem builder and somebody who supports people in entrepreneurship are necessarily the same person. Tyler?
In terms of attributes to a persona that you would define as being someone to ecosystem build, openness, inclusiveness, innovation. They have to be able to ideate, which means that they can hear something new and grasp, real quickly what they're kind of where they're going. Helps to have the conversation, the ability to communicate. I think singular granular focus as to what is or isn't. There's too many parts to play in the opera, to put it all on the French horns. So I think you're asking a lot with the question, and yeah, but just for my role, yeah, I would say kind of things. There's things I don't know anything about money. I still hope I can be one.
Eric, what do you think?
Eric, you're muted if you're talking.
I can try to unmute you, Eric. Hang on. No, I can't unmute you. I thought I had the power. Hassan, you're going to have to fill in now.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this more in terms of like personal traits and attributes and not like a professional skill set, because the professional stuff you can learn. But I think there are, so one, and I guess it kind of falls into what Jeff said, but like a big picture person, someone who looks at the big picture and not like the granular little details, someone who is, and when I say selfless, not that you shouldn't have any personal interest but I think oftentimes you see people who are in things for their own self-interest, and to be totally inclusive. And when I say inclusive, I'm not talking about like the things that you would generally think of in terms of like gender and race, because to me sometimes when people are operating in the same space, even though you may have diversity in that space, everybody to some extent speaks the same language, and there's like groupthink. So when I say inclusive, I'm talking about diversity of thought, diversity of sector, and not to go off on a tangent, but one of the things that I think about in like our ecosystem here is that there are so many things that operate in separate ecosystems. So like the workforce development ecosystem is so disconnected from the entrepreneur and small business ecosystem, even though there are so many parallels and both can benefit from each other. They operate completely separate.
No, and I don't mean to pick on you, Carol. I think that there's there's a little bit of delineation from the list that we talked about, in addition to some of the things that have been said. One of the things, I think empathy is a really big thing, right? There's the ability to listen and to advocate. So I think that those are things that we've talked about, and connectedness, which is core to this goal, right? So I think, and that's where I guess when I challenged Tyler on the going alone person, building ecosystems. I think you're absolutely right in saying that those are the people that we want to bring in and show them that they're part of the ecosystem. They just don't know what their role is. And hopefully bringing them into, which you're a great ambassador for, is the step that needs to be taken in order to show people that they're part of something greater, right? And that's advocating for the space. So what other things in connectedness do we need to think about in order to grow what we do? I mean, what are the assumptions we need to challenge? What are the things that we need to do in order to solve for how do we connect impactfully? And that's just a random question.
So real quick, first of all, I got to jump off in about 4 minutes. I've got another meeting right after this, but I think it'd be useful to, Hassan said it really well, personal attributes versus professional skill sets. And so I think asking that question might be a way to get to, or maybe you want it intentionally vague, but I think what Carol was talking about was professional skill sets. And what I was interpreting was personal attributes, what kind of attributes a person has. So depending on how you want to answer the question answered, think about how you might want to phrase that. But I'm going to need somebody else to take over the note taking here in about 2 or 3 minutes.
Great, thank you. All right, so before we wrap, are there any updates on any of the Goal 4 things? I can tell you that we are still moving forward in 4.6, talking about its standards. There's a lot of discussions in how we build towards the 2020 summit and how we lay the groundwork for what comes next. There's a lot of discussion around it. There are no project briefs because we're not quite there yet in trying to think that through that part. So I think that's the only update that I have on the foundation-ish end as far as this connected network of what the 2020 ESHIP Summit looks like. The dates are still the same. The format may be just a little bit different than what you're familiar with. So there you go. Anybody else have any other project updates?
I have a question. I haven't
Okay.
seen the canvases yet for Goal 4, and I saw in the notes that you were, or it was either in the notes or maybe it was in the, yeah, I think it was in the notes from the last call, for people to do canvases and that they will be emailed. Minutes say to email them out to the group. So I haven't received, I'm on Goal 3, 4, and 7. I haven't received any canvases yet on any of the 3 goals. I feel like I'm out of the loop. Where should I go to see what canvases are
Okay. So I'm going to tell you that at this point, I have, I believe, 3 project canvases out of 30.
Where can we find them? Where are they?
They're not loaded yet because at this point, to add 3, like 1 on one page and 1 on another page, doesn't seem to make sense. Also, internally, we're moving towards a bigger, thanks, Jeff. We're moving towards maybe a different platform. We should keep the ESHIP dashboard, but we're also looking at the possibility of another community platform. So right now, I can tell you that the project canvases are, hang on, I can tell you which goals they are part of. They are part of Goal 5. There's a project canvas for Goal 6. And there's a project canvas, like one project canvas for, what was the other one? I mean, there's literally 3. One of the hardships about getting national resource providers to tell us what they will help support is that we have no project canvases to show them. And we can't create project canvases as the ESHIP team because it's not the Kaufman field of ecosystem building. It is the field of ecosystem building, which is supported, right? So that's where we're at. If you have a project canvas that you would like to share, and as soon as we figure out, I think maybe what happens is we will create another page that will be like current project canvases and post them. So it's not that you've missed anything, Carol. There are literally 3 project canvases. So, and then Jeff says he will make a canvas for 4.4. But the fact is, so here's the interesting part about 4.4. 4.4 is a repository of ecosystem builder stories. So Jeff actually did one a year ago, and he and Tyler and Avery created an organization around what they created a year ago. And Ecosystem Builder Hub actually lives and breathes. So it's not actually even a project anymore. It's an entity. It's a living, breathing thing. So it has life. It has sustainability now. They've been supported by co-starters now. So it's moved forward actually past a project phase. And I can't say it's done, but he will create a project canvas simply for visibility of here's where the notion was, here's what has been created, here you go. Okay.
So is there any concern, this is sort of a step back to 30,000 feet level, is there any concern that after 3 ESHIP, or after just after last Kansas City in May with 500 people, and with some, I don't know, 40 people between the 3 goal calls I'm on, I've got 40 people in my network that are all tied to them, that we only have 3? Are there some barriers that need to be removed in order to be able to enjoy more than 3 project teams forming at least enough to be able to write a canvas?
Okay, so
Different,
whether or not people are writing or sharing a canvas is up to the project teams. The reason that we ask you to share a project canvas is simply for visibility. It's to show the community what's happening, because at the very base of everything that we do, it's about creating the relationships and fostering a community of people who are thriving and doing the thing that they're meant to do. I have to tell you, on a personal level, I cannot speak for the foundation. On my level, my goal is for all of you to be part of a community. Whether or not any projects come out of this community, really, at the end of the day, is not my main goal. My main goal is fostering relationships and learning from each other, which is why we have goal meetup calls, which is why we have a Slack channel and a Facebook page. It's so that we all know that we are part of something bigger, that we are supporting and advocating for each other. And because we have this relationship, there's visibility and alignment and coordination and possibly some collaboration. I don't focus on the outputs. The hackathon that we had and the project canvases that came out of those, which have been shared, it was an exercise in working together. The working together was the thing. It was the doing the thing. It was not about creating the project or having an output. So my main responsibility, my deliverable for the foundation, is not how many projects we get. My deliverable for the foundation is how much community, how much impact, how much connectedness, how much relational stuff is coming out of this, and how we are moving towards a field of ecosystem building, because you're better connected, more knowledgeable, you're well-informed part, right? and how we do this better. So that's where I think it's a challenge, because in an industrial age economic development lens, it is about what we do. And what I'm saying is, for me, it's about doing together. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Hassan, do you have something to add to that?
Actually, I do.
Okay.
So, I mean, just thinking of things from an entrepreneurial perspective. So, entrepreneurs may have an idea, or we may, even as ecosystem builders, we may have an idea at the onset of what we want to accomplish, but we pivot because maybe that's not exactly what happened or what turns out was going to happen. I think if there's anything on all of these calls, canvases aside, initiatives aside, I mean, this is a connected networks call. The fact that we get on this call every single month and I'm talking to Carol, who I was not connected to before, I'm talking to Tyler, I'm talking to Jeff. These are all people, I mean, we are connected now through this call. So forgetting the canvases and forgetting any of the initiatives, that's an outcome of even just the idea of putting together the meetup calls. So I think that's just my thoughts on it.
I just also know that Hassan is like really riding a high from the last couple of weeks of all these people that have been coming to visit Hassan. And he's been hanging out with people that are like, hey, so who do I need to talk to when I'm in Detroit? And we're like, go find Hassan. And then Hassan's like playing tour guide and connector and all those things. So he's the local celebrity. Like, if you go hang out with Hassan, you'll find out what's going on in Detroit. And I think that's been one of the coolest things to watch, is you get to show off your community and what you're doing, and you get to meet a whole bunch of people that not only are learning from you and learning with you, but also are bringing things into your community that are enriching it. And I think that's powerful.
I was going to say, actually, I should probably keep that recording of what you just said and use it to launch a tour guide business for Detroit.
Yeah, you're a scrappy entrepreneur. Eric, are you with us? I want to give you an opportunity to talk.
Oh, joy. I get an opportunity to talk. Sorry, I was moving around a little bit before. Yeah, I had a little other thing kind of blow up a little bit. But so the value of connected networks? What's the what was the lead into this section?
Are you having fun, Eric? What is important to you as an ecosystem builder?
And Cecilia knows a little bit about my gig, and I'm not sure that I can share it effectively what that is. But basically, with Forward Cities, we're doing a project that's working with 4 different communities or regions around the country on inclusive ecosystem building. And it's really sort of flipping the traditional economic development model around, where typically you work with kind of the incumbent larger organizations that have a proven track record. You work on proven models for success, like startup accelerators, et cetera, et cetera. What this does is it really puts the entrepreneurs in neighborhoods that are sort of least resourced. It puts them at the front of the line. So how do we emphasize them in an effort to really truly do more equitable ecosystem building? So I love that work. It's crucial. And that's why I feel like I'm under so much pressure right now, because I'm behind on a couple deadlines.
I'm glad you're having fun. Okay, so I want to be mindful of everyone's time. Thank you. I think we've learned a lot from each other. I think there's been some valuable input. I have to ask this group, and maybe we'll do it on the Slack channel, thinking about December and the goal call for the following month for goal 4 would be on the 11th of December. I will tell you that on the 11th of December, I will be traveling and checked out from the 11th of December through the end of the month. So I am totally out. I have not seen my son in 16 months, and I have 1 month to go before I get to see him. And so my time with him is like paramount. So you are absolutely all welcome to have this call for goal 4 and to pick a topic, pick a speaker, whatever it is. I will sync back with Avery and Tyler and Jeff, who are helping to facilitate this thing, but trying to figure out whether or not you want to call it early for the holidays and start back in January, or whether or not it's valuable time to have you get on this call. So I will leave that up to you. And we'll just continue the conversation that way. But thank you all, and I appreciate your time. Hassan, I will be in touch with you. Do you have a minute to talk after? Okay, I'll call you. Thank you. Have a good week.
So long. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.
All right, take care, everyone. Thanks.
Happy
All right.
Thanksgiving. Take care.